Hey there, welcome to episode 60 of Fresh Air at 5. I'm out for my morning walk and enjoying my mornings and quiet time and podcast listening and exercise. And yeah, here we are, episode 60. So this is, it's one of the decade milestones. It's not a huge one, but to me it's still important because we tick over into the next decade of the counting system. We're going to get into the 60s. Super excited about that. Numbers mean something to me. And, I look at 60 and I break it down to the prime factorization of 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. And, the combinations you can make there of numbers, it's super cool. What I struggle with, and I talk about a bit at the end of the episode here today, this week, is my struggle with words and using words in like Wordle and problem solving like that. So I'm going to give Wordle a try. Are you a Wordler? I don't know. Is that a word? Okay, but without further ado, here we go and jumping into episode 60. Thanks for joining me. Bye.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Heil, one of the hosts of the Partial Credit Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting educational podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, it's Sunday, February 13th, 2022. If you caught up with me on my podcast this past week, you'd notice that there was only 2 days of listening. I got a cold. Don't get a cold. You think it's COVID, actually you do. So I did some COVID tests, came back negative, thankfully, really, really thankful. But it knocked me out for 4 days. So that's why that was short. But I'm out again now. There's papers to deliver that were supposed to be done on Thursday. Well, they only got done today because, we were sick in my house and we couldn't get them done. All right, so as I'm out walking, I listened to the Chan Pav Show. Episode 105 is Chan Pav talk about the culture, setting up a culture of reading. And that is such an important thing. I am not a reading specialist. I am a science guy and take it for granted that we know how to read. So this episode was very curious to me because I heard and listened to things that, it's like, how do you know how to ride a bike? You just do, right? How do you know how to walk? You just do. Do I walk efficiently? Probably not. Could I take the science of walking and learn how to walk better? Another example in my own personal life is fly fishing. And I picked up a fly rod and I was taught some things by a friend. But was I taught those things of how to cast a fly properly? Well, I can get it out there and cast pretty good. And I could probably take a course and probably make some improvements. But do I need to go take a course to be able to go fly fishing? I don't know. Maybe I do. And so this is very much about learning. And this is a very curious conversation. Thank you, Chan Pav, for bringing it up. As a secondary teacher and a media teacher, I don't do a lot of reading with my students, have my students do a lot of reading. Maybe I should get them to do some more reading. Go find a blog article and report back on what they learned from a blog article talking about critical thinking. So maybe that's where it fits in with the stuff that I do. All right. That's all. Gotta go. In for supper. We'll see you guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the morning. Goodbye. Hey, PLN, happy February 14, 2022. That's Valentine's Day, and it's Valentine's. Hope you're doing something special for someone, and if you're not, hope you do something special for yourself. So on this Happy Heart Day. So as I'm out walking for Fresh Air at 5 this morning, I am feeling much better. I'm feeling even better than I was yesterday after being sick for a bit. So that's really good. I'm glad for that. Getting outside, getting that next step. And so this morning, as I started listening, my technology in my ears wasn't cooperating with me. I started listening to Sons of Technology, and then that stopped working for some reason. But I was able to come over to Mindset Monday with George Koros on Innovators Mindset podcast. And I listened to episode 7 of season 2 as George brings us taking the next step, but having a bigger goal in mind. And so, George, you know what? That's so good. Like I like how you broke that down, because that's part of my problem with goal setting, is that I don't know the small things to do when I set a goal, or I know what I can do, but I don't set a goal. And so it's about having those things work together so that we, like right now, I'm just taking my next step on my morning walk. Why am I doing that right now? It's to keep my health going and to be healthy, and to listen to podcasts and to learn and to share so that other people can gain from my learning and they can learn themselves. I'm on episode 60 today, so this is the 60th episode of Fresh Air at 5, so big, made it to 60. I'm excited about that, but is that enough goal, So my motivation to get out and walk is so that I can have content for my podcast. That's important to me, but what is the point? Is it to get to 100? That is actually a goal of mine right now, to see if I can hit 100 podcasts. So that's a goal that's in front of me, but to what avail, right? And what am I doing along the way to get there? So that's just in the podcasting realm. So much good content. I appreciate it, George. I appreciate your vulnerability. And yes, it just happened. So be encouraged. Thanks, bud. Bye. More thing for February 14, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day, Vicky and Jen out there in Ontario and Montana. So yes, this morning on Shooks and Giff, episode 10 of season 5, Vicky Heupel was a co-host with Jen Giffen on Shooks and Giff, and they brought us the Google magic. And it's true, this guy is intimidated by sheets. So I'm going to have to go check out Vicky's content about Google Sheet tutorials and how I can up my Google Sheetness and not be hesitant, as I have been, to use this black sheep of my Google herd, because I use a lot of other things, but not Google Sheets a whole lot. So working on that, and the shortcut keys is super important. I just learned that in Gmail, you got C for compose, you got F for forward, and R for reply. That's going to save me some nanoseconds in a real hurry, because I use those tools all the time, and that'll help with getting things done. There's so much goodness in here. Take a listen, and there's lots of great shout outs to people: Tony Vincent, Eric Geis, Eric Kurtz, others in this podcast that you got to go listen to. And the show notes are for the good stuff that you can find at Shooks and Giff. And thank you, Vicky and Jen, for your words of Google wisdom and making a difference in our lives. All right, have a happy day. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, February 15th, 2022. Beautiful morning for Fresh Air at 5 this morning. Feeling refreshed and energized. Big part because I listened to Got Tech, the podcast, episode 105. Gents, Eric and Nick, you guys brought us the Olympic edition EdTech. You had 5 categories you talked about for various tools, and it was absolutely fantastic. I really loved it. Loved it so much, and I'm going to have to go back and check the show notes because there's so many great tools that I haven't heard of. There's some old and good ones. There's some game changers. There's some, top-notch ones, all different kinds of things for different reasons. I think of your list of 15 things you talked about, I am familiar with probably 3 of them, used probably 2 of them extensively, but there's a whole lot of good tools there. So fantastic, I love it, and you got to go take a listen to this curated collection. Okay, now on to the Olympics. 1988, I was in high school in Calgary when the Calgary Winter Olympics happened. I was privileged to be a volunteer at the Olympics. My dad and I were both volunteers, and so I was there in the front seat watching, not physically watching, but there when Cool Runnings happened live. Like, there was that moment when the Jamaican bobsled team was there, and it was awesome to see. I remember when they arrived at the airport, and it was just a big to-do. It was fantastic. The opening ceremonies, I was there watching that with my family, and the closing ceremonies. I got to volunteer as an usher at curling and short track speed skating when those were demonstration sports that year. Another cool connection is that female hockey superstar here in Canada, Hayley Wickenheiser, she was captain for the women's Canadian hockey team for many years. She was a student in my chemistry lab as I was the lab TA, and she came to me and says, Brian, I was wondering if I can make up some labs because I got to go try out for the Nagano Olympics, and that was for Team Canada. I was like, what? That's awesome. Yes, you can. And so that's my connection. Olympics, awesome. There's my story. All right, talk to you guys. Bye. One more thing for February 15, 2022. Okay, I'm not done talking about the Olympics. I think the Olympics is a fantastic opportunity for the world to come together every 4 years for the summer and 4 years for the Winter Olympic Games. And it brings together young people that are like young people in, our schools, places that we, students that we work with that can go on to the world stage and show their skills and talent and abilities in these very demanding, sporting events. So I love the Olympics. I've been a big Olympic fan since since I could remember. So Eric, it's awesome that your little guy gets up in the morning and listens to the Olympic highlights and gets into that. So that is such awesomeness and so good. I really like their new motto, because faster, stronger, higher, and together. And they've included together now because we need to stay together as a world and a group of countries and people and care for one another. So very important today. All right, so that's my little one more thing about the Olympics. Big fan, been watching it forever, and I love the opening ceremonies and just seeing what people and countries and attitudes around peace and togetherness are. Love the fact that, they're fierce competitors, but at the end of the day, they all stay in the Olympic Village together, and they are together. All right, that's it. Got to catch up on the tail end of another podcast that I listened to yesterday, Shooks and Give, and because I didn't finish the whole thing. So I'm going to do that. All right, have a great day, people. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, February 16, 2022. Welcome to Wednesday. It's a beautiful day here, plus 5 degrees Celsius, not raining, not foggy, and I'm excited about the day. I just listened to episode 77, which I was having difficulty listening to yesterday and the day before. For some reason, my Apple Podcast player wasn't playing, and I got frustrated and I got stuck. And so I couldn't listen to the whole episode for some reason. But then I remembered it's on Spotify. So I'm so thankful for the multiple platforms. So when it doesn't work one place, you can listen to it in another place. So Sons of Technology, episode 77, Subculture. Joe, Kyle, Andy, and Kim talk about subculture and about preparing for a substitute teacher or TOC in your classroom space because of some reason you have to be out. You're at a conference, for example, or you're actually sick or things like that. And how do you prepare for a sub? True story with this guy. Last week, Thursday, I was sick. I had to not come to school because I was actually sick. I had a cold, but it wasn't bad enough. And I woke up at 5 that morning, and I think I prepared because of the way I run my class. I have routines, but I don't have them solid enough. And it's a secondary media arts or media design class. And so I do a lot of things creatively. And because of that, I don't have routines for everything that I do. And I only see the students 1 day a week for an hour and 25 minutes. So because I see them so infrequently, it is a bit difficult to establish routines. I do have culture and routines in place, so the students had a pretty good idea of how to get started. But I had to make the sub plan and prep my Google Classroom so that everything loaded nicely. It did. It was really good. And the sub came in, he was freaked because we're a technology school. He's like, I don't know how to do this. My principal's like, just relax, it's gonna be okay. So I spent time working on it. I feel the pain. One more thing for February 16, 2022. Yes, having a sub plan is important because it helps your substitute teacher have confidence when they come in that, it's not just gonna be a jungle out there like Guns N' Roses sings, And, that came from, I think, Dangerous Minds, that song. And that was a Michelle Pfeiffer teacher movie. And, yes. All right, so I digress. But back to planning for a sub, having your routines and having your learning management system and the students familiar with what they should be doing is important so that the sub says, well, you know what you should be doing, and I know what you should be doing, so that they go and do that. All right, so good. Kim Vogie and Andy Losick, Kyle Henderson, Joe Marquez brought us a fantastic conversation about subculture on Sons of Technology, episode 77. I am a member of the EdTech Army, and so good to hear from you, Andy, and Kim, again, recently. Kim and I connected, so cool, and so share this episode with your colleagues, because it'll help them hopefully have a different perspective on preparing for being away. Preparing for being away because, we don't plan on being away, but we have to plan when we are away or when there's a snow day or something like that we can keep things rolling because, we are expected not to work. All right, that's it. Got more podcasting to listen to. Talk to you guys. Bye-bye. One more thing for February 16, 2022, EdTech Bites, episode 102. Earbuds in the classroom and education, as well as omelets. And Gabe Carril brings us an awesome thought challenge about what do we do with earbuds and headphones in our classroom. What is the class culture? This gets back to routines and setting yourself up for success as well as your students as you approach these kinds of topics. Like, what do you do? What's your expectation? And so, Gabe, for me, my first response to that is no earbuds in the classroom, because if I want to talk and I'm the teacher and I want to convey some information and engage my students, I can't do that if they've got earbuds in, or, I think they've got earbuds in and they're not paying attention. So sometimes, I've got a son at home and he has his earbuds in, oh my goodness, almost all day long. Like when he's home, he's listening to YouTube, podcasts, and he's learning stuff. So it's all good. But then, I call him for dinner and he's in his room with his earbuds in with the door closed down the hall. And I got to go and call him 2-3 times. And how do I deal with that, right? Like, what do we do about that? It frustrates us. He comes out, he's sitting there eating his breakfast or his lunch, like what he's prepared for himself. And we're in the same room together and he's sitting there watching his phone with both earbuds in so he can get better sound. And so, that kind of drives me crazy. But for me in the classroom, I appreciate my students not having their earbuds in for part of the class. There's a time when there's work and we're doing graphic creations or things like that they can put their earbuds in. But I try to be communicative and gentle with that. If a student's got their earbuds in or headphones on, I'm like, please take those off right now while I'm talking. I'd appreciate that. That's great. Thanks so much. And do that. All right, Gabe. Yeah, good topic. Good topic. So many things, and it depends. Talk to you soon. Bye. One last thing for February 16, 2022. Just listen to No Red Pen, episode 14. And Tom Mulaney, thank you so much for this short, comprehensive thought about fonts, and I like it a lot because I teach media design and I work with my students on font choice for projects and how things can be readable and convey a message. I think this might be a podcast I'm going to play in my class for my kids to listen to and learn from as we dig into using fonts, because you have a great comprehensive thought about why fonts are so good. I know why fonts are so good because it makes things look good, but how and why? And so my next question for you, Tom, and I'm going to look into this, is how to change my default font in my Google for Workspace apps. How do you do that? I don't know how to do that, but you said you could do it, so it's possible to do. You know, getting off of Arial right off the get-go, man, that's going to be a game changer. So I'm psyched about that. I'm going to check out Lexand and the family of fonts from Lexand, like you mentioned, and take a look at your website and some of the blogs. Love the history that you're talking about. So very good. All right, so take a listen to episode 14 of No Red Pen with Tom Mulaney. All right, have a great day, everybody. We will talk to you tomorrow. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, February 17, 2022, out for Fresh Air at 5. And this morning I smiled. I smiled because I listened to a new to me podcast for Fresh Air at 5. The Partial Credit Podcast. And I don't think I've mentioned these guys on my podcast. They are part of the Educational Podcast Network. And that would be Jesse Lubinsky, Jeff Heil, and Donnie Piercy. And they talk about random things. And their podcast is super fun. This morning, podcast that I listened to was episode 85. And they had seen an article on Twitter about a food writer for theme parks and said, hey, we got to talk about this article next time on our podcast. And the theme writer, she wrote back and said, well, can I be on your podcast? Or, I'd love to hear, I'm looking forward to hearing the podcast. And well, one thing led to another. She was on the podcast with these guys and she changed her workspace to be at Universal Studios. She gave up her office to work have her office in Universal Studios, and she travels around from cafe to cafe, eating the food, enjoying the opportunity, and telling people about it. Her name is Carly Canamera, I believe, and you can get more details from the Partial Credit website, episode 85, and she writes about her food experiences and about how to kind of navigate food at theme parks. And so I heard things this morning that I had no idea about because I've only been to Disneyland twice. Once when I was young, once when I was a dad. And so we've only been once or twice. And so this is a whole subculture of getting around, seeing things, experiencing nostalgia, enjoying rides, things like that. I'm not a big roller coaster guy, so that's maybe one reason. But yeah, fantastic. So take a listen to the Partial Credit podcast, and these three guys will make you smile. All right, peace, bye. Hey, PLN, Friday, February 18, 2022. Today's Pro D for me, so I thought I'd get started early and get out for Fresh Air at 5 and get some Pro D in my ears. So fantastic to get out for my walk this morning. I just heard a dog. Am I going to get attacked by a dog? I hope not. Okay, and I listened to episode 72 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller, and Jake had on guest Al Thomas. So fantastic to hear from Al Thomas again. I've heard him in the past on other podcasts, and just your creativity, Al, I love it. It's so good. And Jake, yours as well is so great. You guys talked about visual storytelling and how you can have students tell stories. I like the couple of ideas about taking photos. I'm teaching photography to my grade 9s and 10s, and I struggle with how to motivate them to go take pictures. So I like the take a step idea, and then the 16 questions of a picture so that they can get into some critical thinking about what's going on in that picture. I could go dig into the news. I could find some pictures and put together a set and give everybody a random picture maybe, and have them ask their questions. All right. Also, the Wordle thing, I am not there yet. I guess I should probably start because all my friends are doing it. And yeah, I tried the other day. I'm not so much a word guy, like a language guy. And so for me, it was a bit of a struggle. But I think with some practice, I'll get better at it. All right, we'll talk to you guys all soon. Have a fabulous Friday. You made it to the end of the week. And this is the final segment on episode 60 of Fresh Air at 5. And I've been recording 60 episodes over the past year and a bit. And I appreciate all my podcasts that I listen to, Educational Duct Tape, and so on. Check out my podcast to hear what else I'm listening to. Have a fabulous day. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.